Hello, GenXTalking team. We've got a special guest we are talking with today. He and Ed have known each other for a period of years. Ed, would you like to introduce our guest today?
Sure. Hey, Gen Xers, Ed Wasson here. And today we've got an old friend of mine from the military. We're with special guest, U.S. Naval Reserves, Lieutenant Darren Wisdom. Darren, welcome to the show. How you feeling?
Hey, good morning, guys. Good morning, Ed and Matt. Thanks for having me on. Feeling good. Happy to be here with you guys this morning to chat with you guys.
Outstanding. It's good to have you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, brother.
I want to give everybody a little bit more context and background and everything. Darren and I were in the military together at the same joint base, working on a project with related to Southcom and that area. So we met each other in working with JTF Gitmo. I was out there in Army intelligence doing some activities there at that time. And I was a staff sergeant. And Darren, I saw and I met him there. He was, I believe you were an E5 or an E6 at first, and then you picked up chief. Yeah. Later you picked up chief, and Darren and I met through the hallways a few times, chatted a few times, hung out a couple of times. And what I noticed and really liked about Darren is, and now he's a lieutenant, so I'll say Lieutenant Wisdom. What I like about Lieutenant Wisdom is I could immediately identify and recognize he's one of those guys that really goes to bat for his troops. But at the same time, while he could nurture when he had to, he could also be that velvet glove in an iron fist. And I saw him come down on a couple of troops as well. So it indicated to me he had a strong care for his troops and their well-being. And we've been really good friends ever since then. We've met each other in the Dallas area a couple of times. So there's the kind of the background on Darren. And I know that the first question I've got for you, Darren, is I know you said you were in naval basic training on the day of September 11, 2001. Walk us through that day. What was going on with the training environment and everything on the naval base?
Sure, Ed. So yeah, you're taking me back there. It was good working with you in Gitmo. Made a good friend for life there. So for that, I'm grateful for that. I graduated high school summer of 2001, and I had big plans for my life to join the Navy and pay for college. Like most kids at that time, I was 18, had no clue of the world, hadn't really traveled much, and I was shipped off to basic training at the end of that summer and 2001. And I recall that we got that initial phone call to call our families and let them know we were alive and well. And, we hadn't spoken to them for about a month now. And we were getting, I remember that day like it was yesterday because my little sister's birthday is that day. She's a 9/11 baby. I'll never forget. No one ever forgets her birthday. But we were getting our first phone calls that day. Legitimate, I think like 10, 15 minutes, we were able to make phone calls. And I was looking forward to that day, give my sister a call and chat with her. And of course, that day didn't happen because of the attacks on 9/11, and understandably so. But, you're in basic training. You have no idea what's going on. There's sirens going off. You see people running around, sky is falling kind of mentality. And of course, we're not even in the military yet. Essentially, we haven't passed and been, inducted in as a military member because we haven't passed basic training yet. So we don't even matter when it comes to knowing what's actually happening. And they've, completely cut us off from technology at that point. Cell phones weren't as rampant. The internet was barely in its infancy. So no one had a, prison cell phone, if you will, to find out what was going on. I remember the instructors, the drill instructors, they marched us back to our barracks. And then they came in and they told us what had happened. They had us all sit down. It was kind of it was a break from the constant, getting yelled at but yelled at with a purpose. But, they became more human in that moment. And they sat us all down and they explained to us what had happened. I think there was about 96 of us in that basic training class. And, everybody was just in shock. you don't know what's going to happen next. Again, being an 18-year-old kid, you have no idea. You're scared. You're like, oh man, so for what the potential of what I signed up for is happening. And not only is it happening, but I haven't even really made it through, and it's happening now.
Yeah, right.
Then they showed us the videos of everything that occurred. And I'm sure you guys are familiar, you go through the different stages of shock, if you will. And, and then it's anger, and now it's resolve to, to support and defend your country, to go after these guys in any way you can. And really, that's my career. I've been in 20 years now, and it's literally just been this fight, counterterrorism, if you will. Started that day.
Well, I was just thinking, with that thought in mind, I've heard that story a couple of different times, and how it's affected people, not only personally but professionally. And I was just wondering, do you feel like that event changed your life, and in what ways do you think it changed it?
Sure. And that's a great question, Matt. And obviously, it's impacted everybody in different ways. But for me personally, I was 18 years old, right? I grew up, the U.S. is untouchable. We never had anything, like this happen. You don't expect anything like this to happen, not to us at least, and not in the dramatic fashion that, that it happened. You really grew up overnight, right? Because you have to, your mindset now shifts from we're in peacetime to now, not only are we in wartime, but this is a threat, and this threat is existential to, the country that I love and the ideals that I support, because these guys are real bad guys.
Yeah.
They will hesitate at they will not hesitate to kill you or your family or your children. They're wicked. And so, I will say, for me, it impacted me, because I grew up overnight when this happened. Immediately, you were expected to perform. You were expected to, take it serious, everything that was happening and what we were trying to accomplish. The last 20 years has just been the focus on, counterterrorism and going after these guys and trying to stop them, slow them down, defeat them. It's been a wild ride.
So we've seen how or heard how that's kind of impacted your professional life a little bit. How has it affected your personal life?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's definitely affected, personal life, in that I'm a little bit unique in that when I joined the service, I wanted to see the world. I wanted to travel. Now, the events of 9/11, changed the type of travel I was going to get to do.
Dramatically.
Yep. But it didn't change my desire to be out there, right? I was single, obviously, at 18 when I joined, and for me, it was one of those, I'm going to be out there. I'm never going to take a shore tour, if you will.
Right.
Like we have these seashore rotations. Usually you're out for 3, you're home for 3. I never took those. So I was constantly gone. I went from sea tour to sea tour to sea tour. So, on a personal level, relationships back home, I went 18 months without seeing my parents, siblings, things like that. But, they supported me and understood, what we were doing, and as a nation, defending our nation. But, definitely, personal relationships, you lose some friends, or, but you gain some new ones. I gained, brothers for life and sisters for life in the service. About 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I deployed to Afghanistan, and, my first marriage ended. I can't say it was a result of that, but, it definitely had some impacts because I was gone quite a bit. But, my children, it's hard to explain to them, hey, dad's got to go. As I try to explain to them, hey, dad's got to go fight the bad guys so that you can, keep going to soccer practice.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, right.
I definitely can say, though, that I've had a lot of family support. They may not understand exactly, why, I'd want to do this for this long, but they definitely support. So, that's huge to definitely, to have that support.
Yeah, outstanding.
Hey, Darren, you mentioned something that was very interesting, and that was introduced the concept of the United States being kind of this powerhouse, and it has for years and years. For most of my life, that I've thought of it as the greatest country in the world, and I still do. Right.
Yep.
At one point in time, I was having a conversation with I guess he's probably a millennial. So he's a little bit younger, probably in his early 30s now. And this was back when he was in his 20s, and he's having this discussion about, yeah, the United States has been a powerhouse for basically my entire life. Maybe it's time for somebody else to be a powerhouse now. And I just about took his head off in a kind mentor way.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question back to you, Darren, is how do you feel that patriotism might have played a part in how you responded to the 9/11 event?
I bleed, red, white, and blue. I mean, this country is the greatest country on earth. I mean, it's the only country in the world where you can come from anywhere and become something. It's all about what you're willing to do and what how hard you're willing to work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a child of, my mother is a Mexican. She's a naturalized U.S. citizen. She came over. She's living the American dream. She's, educated, works, makes a lot, doctors, millions and millions of dollars a year through the business marketing that she does. She wouldn't have had this opportunity in Mexico.
Yeah.
My father, his grandparents immigrated, World War I over from Austria. And we all know that, that place was devastated, not just in World War I, but World War II. They became successful here in this country. They had all these opportunities afforded to them. And this is the only place in the world that you can do that. I believe in what our founding fathers, wanted for this country. I believe in the ideals and the principles, and I believe that they're worth fighting and dying for if necessary. I mean, this is the greatest country on earth.
Amen.
And, to your point about these millennials, that say these things, I think it comes from a lack of understanding and a lack of knowledge, true knowledge. And I don't mean it that, there's only held by certain people, but, there's something to be said to actually have gone out and experienced the world a little bit. And you can see how bad things are in these other countries. I'll give you a quick case study on this. I have a cousin who's a really intelligent kid, smart kid, but, he's educated in the UCLAs and USCs of the world. And he's also he's a social worker. About a decade ago, it was all about Cuba. It's a great country. It's a great place. They take care of their people. And I always just told him, I said, buddy, just go there. Yep. I wish you could get a chance to go there. And when finally it was opened up a little bit recently, he went. And I can tell you it damaged him.
Yeah.
From emotionally, psychologically, it was not what he was expecting. I wish these kids would get a chance to go out and see that. And, I don't know about you guys, but if you look at who could potentially be number one, right? If it's not us, well, you lean to the left, it's China. You lean to the right, it's Russia, really, right? Let's just, for the sake of this conversation. Well, when you're number one, you get to make the rules.
Amen.
I like the rules. I like the rules that our country has.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have this freedom in these other countries. We couldn't even have this conversation right now in Russia or China.
Yeah, that's right. An interesting point. So I want to follow up with that, Darren, along those same lines, and I discussed this with you previously. For our listeners, they may not realize this is not scripted. This isn't going to be live. We're recording this, right. Although it's not scripted. We have communicated with you a little bit on some questions that we're going to ask, and we're trying to keep this into a fairly a discussion within certain markers, because we're talking about this somber honor and remembrance of the September 11, 2001 attacks. I'm having a hard time reconciling a lot of things about the whole incident, because I do recognize that 9/11 did change my life. I'd been in the military previously, and after 9/11, I went back in the military, and that was the opportunity to learn Arabic and do all this other stuff again. And since I've been around the world again on some tours there in the global war on terrorism, I've seen and experienced personally firsthand a lot of different things that we're not going to get into in this episode. But I want to try to understand from your perspectives, because you and I have talked about things like a little bit politically too, and we're fairly moderate. We're not like all up on Trump, or we're not all up on Biden. And we kind of, I think we, because of our backgrounds, we have a little bit broader and more moderate viewpoints. But what do you tell, because as soon as I posted an alert, kind of like an alert or notification on this on my Facebook, that, hey, GenXTalkin is going to have this episode, and we're going to talk to some people who are basically still actively in the fight, or who are on the ground when something happened or whatever. And it's going to be an episode about 9/11. 99% of my Facebook friends and family are a little bit right leaning, and they're all supportive of it. But there's always that one heckler out there. And that one heckler, as far as I know, is a 25-year-old Caucasian from Corinth, Texas, who, as far as I can tell, grew up in about a 3,800 square foot house on the lake, with an RV and a boat and all this kind of stuff. And if you want to be try to march for various things, I get that. But his question to my post was, are you guys going to talk about conspiracy theories like it's a hoax, the US government did it, more people are dying of coronavirus? They get a little bit of education, and they think they want to get involved in these slippery slope type arguments. Do you have members in the military that you see that are like that? And what's your thoughts? How do you respond to the millennials and Gen Zs who were born around that time and never knew America except to be the America that's under attack, and not just terroristic attack, but like a social media attack, attacking the fiber of our culture? How do you respond to that, like conspiracy theory and America needs to, just level out, or, maybe America just going away is a good thing, or no borders? How do you respond to all that, Darren?
Yeah, I mean, that's a loaded question. I think so. So first off, I think I will say this right off the bat. I think because of the times that we live in, there is so much information out there that's including misinformation, right? So there's so much information out there that we're actually not as intelligent as we think we are, because we have access to all this information. What the problem is now you're having to sort through that information to try to find out what is an actual reliable, accurate, relevant source, right? And one thing that they teach us in the military, and Ed, you know about this specifically in intelligence, but even if you're in education and you're writing a paper, you have to source your documents, right?
Right.
Yeah. Where are you getting this? I mean, where are you getting this from? So we can verify it, right? The validity of it. People who work in science and medicine have to do this all the time. They don't just create a drug and then we start pumping it into people's body because, some doctor said, oh, you're good to go, or it was blessed by a priest. This isn't how this works. So I would challenge people to verify the information of the sources that they're, believing in, right? And that also goes back to, who is the source of the source also. You have these college professors that say things or believe certain ways, but, where are they getting that information from?
Right. Do they have a bias?
Yeah. Were they in Cuba 50 years ago, right? When it wasn't bad? Or were they in North Korea 50 years ago when North Korea was better than the living situation in South Korea, only because of the economies of Russia or the Soviet Union and China supporting them? Anyways, get a little off base there, and you guys know this as well. Everybody knows this. If I Google something with a slant, I'm going to get the slant I want.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. So, again, it comes back to, what do you want? Do you want the truth, or do you want your version of the truth? So, I mean, that's, again, it comes back to the misinformation that's out there. And when I talk about misinformation, we know for a fact that there are adversaries out there that are punching in and plugging in a bunch of misinformation. One of the ways that adversaries seek to destroy somebody is they look at all the options that they have. Well, one of the options is, let's destroy them through misinformation. Let's get them to fight each other over things that are social hot topics.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that I challenge people from the left and from the right, from presidency to presidency, what really changes?
Yeah.
What really changes from these core, executive agendas? what changes?
Right.
And you do see some things change, right? But right now, Biden, for example, he hasn't changed the border policy that Trump had in place. It's a mess down there, I agree, because he hasn't taken any real action, but he has not changed what Trump has put in place. And what I'm getting at is that these guys at the top, their goal is to run this nation and to manage this nation. And they'll say whatever they have to during elections on the left or the right to get elected. But then they get in line and they run this country. Do you think that President Joe Biden is sitting in the executive office of the White House and worried about abortion rights?
Yeah, exactly.
No, if you turn on the news right now, he's worried about those American citizens he has to evacuate from Afghanistan right now.
Yeah, right.
You know, that's what he's talking about. He's not talking about abortion rights. He's not talking about BLM movement. He's not. It's convenient for a time.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, nothing really changes from president to president with regards to the way they run this nation. They still want what's best for this nation. I believe that.
I was going to say, in our line of work, we rubbed elbows a lot with PSYOP, and a lot of people don't understand what PSYOP is, but from an intelligence perspective, we know that the U.S. does these types of studies all the time. We do strategic analysis and PSYOP type work, and we look at a foreign country that may be adversarial, such as, for example, maybe China, and we try to look at what their social and cultural vulnerabilities are, and we do the same thing. We plant a lot of misinformation and a lot of dissent in there. Like, you take China, we support the Uyghurs and the Uyghur movement in China. It's a huge Muslim movement in China that China is outright trying to suppress. So as it relates to 9/11 and our, everything that happened in our lives, I think it's one of the more deep cultural and social impacts that I experience almost monthly. Somebody asks me something on Facebook or some other social media, if they understand my background and I'm posting stuff, that they ask about the conspiracy theories and such. So I appreciate you going through and laying down some information to inform and educate. What other thoughts do you have, Darren?
So just regarding the conspiracy theories, because I mean, the big one in the room is, 9/11, right? Everybody likes to say it. So I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, Ed, you've worked for the government. Matt, I don't know exactly, how much time you spent working for the government. I know that you do some stuff for the government, but the government is so disorganized when it comes to certain things. And planning is one of those things, and execution of plans. And the government is notorious for taking a very long time to plan something out. And then, but what they're good at is, we've identified problems in the plan and then we're going to correct these, but it takes time. So when I sit there and I listen to, oh yeah, they planned this, I have a hard time believing that they could coordinate this type of operation with illiterate terrorists from another country. I mean, just think of the conspiracy, right? I mean, it would have to include Saudi Arabia, the United States, Afghanistan, wealthy people. I mean, it's just, you just, when you start trying to connect the dots, they just don't connect.
Some anomalies are easy to point out, and some of those anomalies I can actually, I actually kind of think of myself, because there's some things I don't have a very easy reconciliation of. We can talk about all that kind of stuff in a separate episode later, maybe an episode with a little bit less gravitas, because we want this episode to be somber remembrance in honor of the 20th anniversary of 9/11. But yeah, there's things like, how did they find this passport in the wreckage, Tower 7, things like that. We can discuss those kind of things, but overall, there's some fairly laid out historical fact, and it's very well documented and everything. And we've gone through, we weren't on ground zero, you and I, but we've been elsewhere where we've seen, there's 7 billion people on the planet, almost 8 now. There's just no way that you have this much information, and even our intelligence apparatus as grand as it is, because it's the largest, most technologically advanced intelligence apparatus ever. It can gather a lot of information, but it even internally, if you're trying to develop automated collection and assimilation and analysis of certain data points, a lot of that is erroneous. You have to look at a lot of different things. You have a lot of human eyes on it. We have probably tens of thousands of human analysts that can't sift through all this data. Imagine all the times you're on a phone call, you're on social media, everything else like that. And there's that many people, probably almost a billion people a day on TikTok, Instagram, and all that other stuff. And the one thing you do see is misinformation. So I think that's one thing that is prevalent in my mind. But 9/11 was just probably the biggest game changer. I think it's probably one of the biggest days in human history, all of human history. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of a couple of different things. One of the things, I understand the concept of wanting to keep this to a somber note, but one of the things that I try to do is I try to look at things from the positive side as well, right?
Yeah.
And it's clear that there are very difficult things that came from the event, and they changed our lives, changed my life, changed you guys. And this may seem like a strange question, but can you think of any positive things that came from that event, whether personally, professionally, or consider how the U.S. might have changed, anything like that, Darren?
Yeah, I mean, so on a positive note, I can tell you that I love this country even more, and I believe even more in what we're trying to do. I mean, that for me is number one. Number two, on a positive note, everything that I am today, everything that I've accomplished has been because of, one, this country, but two, my service to this country. I've learned a lot, I've traveled a lot, met a lot of people, and been able to, advance in my personal career. And I've met a lot of great people along the way. And, it's one of the positives out of that has been, this experience that I've had. I have more faith in our country and their resolve. I can't foot stomp that enough. The bad guys are out there. They want to kill you and your family. And, this event just solidified that and my resolve to defend my country. Yeah. And, on a personal level, that's been really the most positive thing for me, is just believing even more in what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think it was a huge, a unifying thing. Regrettably, I was saddened that it took an incident like this to unify the country to where it needed to be. And ever since then, it's just been left and right division again. And we've got, now it's kids of ours, not me personally, but if I had kids, they would be of age to be in the service, and they're going out there in harm's way. There's two types of people out there. There's traveling companions and useful idiots. And I'm not saying you're like one of those George W. Bush adages, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. But people on both sides, when they're on social media anyway, they make it sound like that. And on social media, they need to get rid of that. And when they're in person, face to face, out in public or whatever, it seems like everybody's more moderate. I'd really like to see America tone down the social media rhetoric and get unified and do their due diligence research online, not necessarily research like you're doing a PhD dissertation, but you got Google there. Just Google a few things real quick and put a few sources together before you just read a meme. And I see this coming from college educated kids. They just jump on a meme bandwagon and they actually believe this stuff, and then they get passionate about it, and they don't understand the division they're creating and the threat of the enemy and the way the enemy works, and that's probably disinformation that's been intentionally sowed in there somewhere.
Darren, I want to say two things. First of all, man, I love the resolve. You started that last discussion with, man, I love my country even more, and that's a beautiful thing. So again, I can't tell you how many times. Thank you for your service. So definitely appreciate it. But you also mentioned the fact that you travel so much for, and you probably do more additional travel personally as well, but most of it being professionally in what you do. Do you have, like, first of all, a favorite place, and second of all, a favorite person or group of people that you've met that you like? I love this. Like, for example, best place for me, because most of my travel is personally, best place for me, probably Oslo, Norway. Actually, beautiful place. Loved the art up there. And I'm not even an artsy guy at all, but the art was incredible. The people were very, very nice. So do you have any kind of favorite place and favorite people?
Well, it's I will say that's tough because, although the world is big, it's gotten a lot smaller. And, we're able to travel a lot more. And I will say that although also we're here in the United States, we're not that much different than anybody else. And there's a lot of great cultures and places out there. I mean, it's just an amazing. So it's difficult to pick a number one. I will say that I do enjoy traveling to Brazil. My wife is Brazilian, so we travel to Brazil. And, I love the beaches. I love, I personally, I'm a water guy, so I like scuba diving. It's great down there. The food is great. The people are nice. It's not as
okay,
dangerous.
not to interrupt, but Brazil, Sao Paulo, or Brazil, Rio?
So I've been to all those places, but so I will say this: Rio is beautiful based on just its location. I mean, if you haven't been there, it's magnificent. I mean, the location is just amazing. Now my wife is from the Sao Paulo area, but I even like going up north to Recife. The beaches up there, it's nice, man. And again, I like the food, right? So my mom is Mexican, so the food is a lot of similar, like really good beans and rice and a lot of really good meat cuts and things like that. You guys know Brazilian steakhouses and stuff. And you guys are in Texas too, so you guys can appreciate a good cut. But I will say, people-wise, though, the friendliest people that I've ever met were from the Philippines. Filipinos.
I mean, cool, man.
Yeah, Filipinos are friendly.
They're so friendly.
And the Thais, I like the Thais too. They're very friendly.
Friendly. So I like the Philippines too. It's a little dangerous there in some areas, but but it's beautiful and the people are friendly. So I would say, like, the place I like to visit the most is Brazil, but the people I like the most, probably the Filipinos.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I've been to all those places too. I think the best chicken I ever had was Brazilian. Crazy good chicken, man.
Yeah, but they got some good food out there.
Hey, at least I got the chicken.
That's like, at least I can remember the chicken. Yeah, good. Okay, so I had just two more questions. Ed, do you have any other questions you'd like to ask?
I don't have any other questions. I'll just see where we're going towards the end and see if we have any follow-up when we close out.
Okay, good deal. So two last questions, and I'll start with one, let you answer it, and then the last one. So you've worked in security for most of your life. What are some simple things that you can share with the audience that might teach them how to protect themselves in everyday life?
Sure. So I will say, protecting your persona online, right? Ensuring that you do have the security features in place so that you just can't be found, or that people can't just steal your photos off, copy, paste, things like that. You'd be surprised what people can do with the information that's out there. In my civilian job, I work for the Defense Counterintelligence Security Agency. It's a Department of Defense agency that we conduct background investigations and counterintelligence services for the federal government. And you'd be surprised how many people are attempting to be blackmailed or phished based on the information that they have that's out there online. So for young women especially, and men, sending nudie pics to each other, or people that you just met on Match.com, chances are that especially for the men, if a woman is asking for a naked picture, first, that should be a red flag, because most women don't ask for that. And two, if you snap that to them, there might be an extortion attempt. But online security, also on your wallets, there's these machines that bad guys use to rip your information from your credit cards.
Yeah.
There's
credit card skimmers.
Yeah.
Yep. There's I forgot what it's called, but you can place it in your wallet, and it actually, you might have
I've got one of those. Yeah, it's like a thick electronic gate card
Yep.
key. Yeah.
Yep. Just stick that there, and it'll protect you.
You need that, especially when you're traveling into places like Russia.
Absolutely.
Taking these steps to just, well, how available or how accessible is my personal information out there, and what are some steps that I can take, right, to protect myself. Just being honestly very logical and rational about it. Like, does everybody need to know about this? Or and not everyone online is your friend.
Hardly anybody online is my friend.
Imagine that. I'm your friend, Ed. I'm your friend.
And I will add this: if there's an extortion attempt, don't give into it. Contact, if you're not in the federal government, or if it didn't happen at work, if it happened on your own, contact local law enforcement to assist you in that. The worst thing you can do is give them money, because then it also continues their efforts on the next person.
Yeah.
And then also for your older listeners, it's common knowledge, but it's worth repeating. Don't provide any personal information over the phone to people calling you, soliciting things. You'd be surprised. I'll call someone for an investigation to just set up an appointment, and the gentleman is a little elderly, and he'll call me back and leave me a voicemail, and he'll leave me his social security number on the voicemail.
Ooh.
Yeah. I had to call him back and say, hey, sir, you did get the right agent, but there's a lot of impersonators out there, and if I was a bad guy,
I do find it interesting that you started the whole thing with cyber, because that will be a future episode that we'll actually be talking through, and we'll have a cyber specialist actually come in and talk with us on that. Good. So that's pretty exciting. And just knowing that you, even in your world of military and travel and so on, cyber is like bing, number one that comes to your mind. It really lends itself to understand how much cyber is affecting everything around us. I was just reading I'm in the process of reading a book on the risks of critical infrastructure, and one of the number one things they say is it's not people physically going and attacking, although that's a possibility, attacking a generator or attacking a substation or something like that, but it's more cyber, and a particular nationality coming in and essentially holding the whole critical infrastructure hostage, controlling it however they want to. So
and it's happening more and more. Just for your listeners, Colonial Pipeline that just happened. Some of y'all probably were impacted by that. That's a great example, Matt, of like, hey, it's there, and it's happening more and more.
Yeah.
Give them that example again, Darren. Which pipeline was it?
Yeah, the Colonial Pipeline that got shut down. That was ransomware. That was shut down by bad actors.
Yeah, and it affected most of the East Coast, price wise and supply wise, pretty significantly.
Yep. And again, that comes back to talking about safety and security. Most people didn't have a plan, and they were living for that moment of, I'll get gas Friday. Well, Friday, guess what? You can't.
Yeah.
And that's what this show is all about, is
absolutely
being prepared and remaining prepared and never having your vehicle on empty.
Yeah. So it's ironic that is the last question. Preparedness means different things to different people. So what does it mean to you?
It's funny. You had all these, remember the shows that the preppers, I don't even know if they do it anymore, but people would kind of, scoff and laugh and say, oh, that doesn't, people are crazy. But, if, for example, when 9/11 happened, you guys recall, things were quiet. And really, it was only the Eastern Seaboard where really things were kind of shut down a little bit. The rest of the world and the rest of the United States really continued on with our daily functions, and the shutdown, if you will, that on 9/11 lasted a couple of days, if most. So it really didn't have as much of an impact. Now, fast forward, we got COVID-19, and you just witnessed the exact reason why it should, preparedness matters, right?
Yep.
With the lack of essentials, things like that that people were facing. So for me, I live pretty remote. I live in upstate New York. So preparedness for me obviously means, having enough food, to get my family through for at least a month. And so a lot of that is dry food. So I have lots of beans and rice, couscous, things like that. Fills the belly up. All I need is hot water to heat it, to make it, and that's pretty simple to get. And then obviously enough heat for my family. And one of the things that I made a point was, because COVID kept, we're still in it really, but it happened in spring of 2020, and I decided to really get into gardening.
Oh.
And so I started gardening in our backyard. I made some plots there, and we've been getting tomatoes and corn and all kinds of stuff. So unfortunately, I was behind the curve as far as getting myself prepared. But this incident incentivized me to learn more.
I was going to tell everybody, and Matt and anybody that might be listening when we upload this, Darren's one of those guys that has also taught his children how to fish. And I love that. He's posting pictures of them catching little trout and stuff in the streams. And that was a big thing growing up for me. When I was a kid, my dad taught me to fish. Is one of the biggest things in my childhood. And the adage is, catch someone a fish they eat for the day, teach someone to fish they'll be able to eat for life. And I just love the fact that you've gone out there and taught your kids how to fish. That's awesome.
No, I appreciate that, Ed. And one of the things I will add actually is that my kids they clean them themselves, and we eat them. I mean, they're big, nice rainbows or browns.
Yep.
And there is, some people get grossed out by it, but it's actually, fish is pretty easy to clean and gut.
Yeah.
It's very quick.
Yeah.
And it tastes really
Especially
good.
Trout. All right. Well, it's been a tremendous pleasure and honor to have you as a guest talking with us on the show. I feel honored to know you and be friends with you, and had a chance to meet you and get to work with you and everything. And we wish you all the best in your personal and professional life, Darren.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate it. As always, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, and I'm looking forward to next time we can hang out. And Matt, again, it's been great working with you, and hopefully, when I come out there visit with Ed, we can all get together sometime.
Yeah, very cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Yeah, fair winds and following seas, brother.
Thanks.
All right,
take it easy, gentlemen.
All right, guys.
Take care, Darren.
Bye.